The third meeting of the 13th Undergraduate Senate is now called to order. I will begin by calling the roll. Senator Hakami.
Here.
Senator Kantar.
Here.
Senator Hawk.
Here.
Senator Hanash. Senator Dantzler.
Here.
Senator Burgess.
Here.
Senator Leacham.
Here.
Senator Chen.
Here.
Senator Adams.
Here.
Senator Polinsky. Senator Najafi.
Here.
Senator Koshman.
Here.
Senator Pryor.
Here.
Senator Kenna.
Present.
Senator Martine.
Here.
Senator Morrow.
Here.
Senator Mejia. Senator Zitzman.
Here.
Senator Nayar. Senator Beaton. Senator Howard.
Here.
Senator Legitimacy.
Here by proxy.
Senator Egdepa.
Here.
Quorum is met. All right. We will move on to the adoption of the agenda. Are there any amendments to the agenda? Senator Hawk.
I move to amend the agenda to add Resolution 1718-4, which was just emailed to all the senators, a resolution to support Case Connect.
What was the title of it?
A resolution to support Case Connect.
Okay. Any other changes to the agenda? Without objection, the agenda will be adopted. Okay. Moving on to the adoption of the minutes from the second meeting. Let me pull this up. Okay. Any changes to the minutes? Seeing none, they will be adopted without objection. Okay. All right, we'll move to appear to public comment. Any member of the public wishing to speak? Yes.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker. Good afternoon, Mr. Speaker and wonderful members of the Senate. As you know, I'm Joyce DeSource, president of the Abramson Institute. I am just checking in with the Senate today. I would really love to comment on the various items of new business we have. It looks like we have a lot of really intriguing things that are coming up today, but inevitably I have to comment instead on that members of the public really can't see what this new business entails. So for Trevor, how long has the Undergraduate Senate existed?
13.
Like 13 years. We've had this period of public comment, but I'm going to assume for 13 years, members of the public haven't really been able to look at what the Senate is about to review. So unless I have missed something, which I would love someone to reach out to me about, I think the Senate should really take action to make sure that business items are not only made clear on the agenda before meetings, but that the text of those business items are made public to members of the public before business meetings occur, so that members of the public like myself and like my friends could come in and comment on matters that are concerning to them. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. I will make a comment on that. I guess I'll make the announcement now, is if you look at the Senate portion of the AUSU website, we have a new section called Track Legislation. And so that's just one step forward in your direction. Right now it shows where legislation is. Our next step is going to be publicizing the actual wording of each legislation on the website. We're making a step forward in your requests. Any other members of the public wishing to speak? All right, seeing none, we'll move on. To reports of officers. Will the vice president come on down?
To the podium.
Whatever you want.
I'll be brief because I two my cabinet members here, so I'll let them kind of talk more about what they're doing. But last week we had our agreement with the Hill and SPA. We had three representatives come. Mia Love, Republican from Utah, Darren Soto, Democrat from Florida, and Adriano Espaillat. I forget Espaillat, yeah. The Democrat from New York. They all came. We've met next week with Heather Booth. We're very excited about. And we have the upcoming hopeful confirmation of Skylar Coleman as 2019 president. So exciting things are happening. And thank you.
All right. Any questions for the vice president? All right. And just to be clear for officers, since there is so much on our agenda, I will be holding the 4-minute time limit very strictly, unless senators grant you additional speaking time. So moving on to Comptroller Chovik, floor is yours.
Okay, so I have mine split kind of into 3 component parts. So first, I'm kind of going over my kind of capacity as head of human resources for SG. So I sent Trevor the kind of updated ethical and judicial standards, which will serve as the human resources handbook for AUSG. We're actually like the only student government in the country that has a handbook for HR. But essentially the biggest amendments are changes to conflict mediation. So essentially affirming that your mediator is impartial before they're selected. And then you can't, or like individuals can't appeal the decision based solely on the severity of the sanction. They can appeal it based on like violating of like due process or finding out there was previously unknown bias on the part of the mediator. And then another change is that we have a new report filing process, which Chris is going to help set up through the AUSG website so that there's a form there. And then there will be the ability for my designee to initiate cases. And then we also created the ethical standards portion. So if you have any more questions on that, I have an associate comptroller for human resources, Chris Abbott. He's in a meeting right now, but he's accessible via email. If you have any more questions about that, send the text to Trevor earlier today, and he will disperse that to the rest of the senators. And then in terms of budget updates, internally, the Senate approved the transfer from capital maintenance to SG General, $2,000 to pay for Thanksgiving meals over break. This leaves $2,581 left over in the capital maintenance account. And we still need to find out exactly how much of that was spent. And then externally for SG, the travel stipend has been most recently used. So we've helped Mission Improbable attend one of their conferences for $212.96. And then AU Squared is attending their national conference, and we are paying $200 of that to pay for accommodations in New York. And that leaves $1,212 left in the travel stipend account out of the $3,300 that initially began in it. So a little bit less than half of it's been used so far. So I think it's a pretty good pace, considering we're at the end of pretty much this semester. And then with the Special Committee on Finance meeting, I met them all, had the pleasure of meeting all the committee members on Thursday. And I'll be working with Senator Hawk to go over a sort of semesterly report on SG's finances.
All right, thank you. Any questions for the comptroller? Seeing none, all right, we will move on to reports from Secretary Schneider.
Sorry, I was just creating a presentation that I'm not going to present because it's in Comic Sans and you won't see it. So, hi everyone. We're home stretch, 2 more weeks for most of us. We did 2 rounds of headshots this week. If you weren't able to make it, I will be reaching out again either today or tomorrow with 1 or 2 additional times this week with our excellent photographer. If you took a headshot, I'm pretty sure I got it to everyone. If you haven't, email me like during this meeting and I can send it over to you. They will be used for the SG website. So they'll have like the little logo in the corner and it'll be on the Your Senators page. In the same vein as that, please send me a short biography of yourself at your earliest convenience for your profile page on our website. I want to have that done by the time we come back from break. So if you want to work on it during break, that's fine. Thanksgiving meal, as Christine mentioned, we paid for that. I think the total was like $1,300 total. So we're going to split that with RHA. So we'll pay for, it's probably like $700 something. I'm still waiting on a report from OCL on how it went because nobody was here. But there was an HRL person that was running it for us. So I'm waiting to get that information back from OCL. In terms of what Trevor touched on with the track legislation page, that is the brainchild of our excellent web and communications specialist, Brian Fu, the former Senate communications director and also now former Pace press secretary. So that's great. We're going to publicize that. That's a great place to find all the legislation. It's going to be, hopefully, we'll start linking to it in our emails with the agenda, and we'll post it every week when we post the meeting information so that members of the public are able to actually, as Joyce alluded to, read the legislation. I think that is it. Headshots are priority this week. Next, please get sleep, study, go to the library, a place that you want to study. I don't know. Like I don't go to the library personally, but good luck.
All right, thank you. Any questions for the secretary? Senator Meacham.
Not a question, just a comment. I just wanted to say that I thought you did a really good job on the Thanksgiving, and kudos to you for making that happen because I think that's really cool.
Senator Martin.
Do you want us to send you the picture that we like best?
Yes, thank you. Please send me the picture that you like best from your headshots for the website. And then aside from that, you can use any of them for LinkedIn. Highly recommend them for LinkedIn, Facebook. Mine was my Facebook profile picture for a while. So yeah, they're yours.
It's your email signature.
Other questions for the secretary?
It's not.
It's your email like thingy.
Oh.
All right. We'll now move on to report from the Women's Initiative Director, Smith.
Can you pull up the doc for a second? Okay, great. Hi, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Maureen. I'm the Director of Women's Initiative. I'm really here. I think all of you received the newsletter that I sent. And so this is just an overview of what that looks like. I would really love for you all to sort of pay attention to the mission statement and then my letter kind of overviewing the fall semester. I really cannot express how much work we did in 4 minutes. So that newsletter sort of gives you an overview of every single programming initiative that we worked on this semester. Everything spanning from anti-violence intervention work to work on campus climate and issues of race and gender to environmental justice work and sort of fundraising around that. We really focused on 3 main goals this semester, which included inclusion, timely and timeless programming, and then creative expression. So really taking a step forward with the programming that we've been working on in the past and making it even more innovative and creative and accessible to students. So this just gives you an overview of that. I would really love to see senators at Women's Initiative programming moving forward. I think it's a beautiful opportunity to become more familiar with the kind of work that Women's Initiative does, and also to get to know our staff, which is absolutely amazing. Those folks are essential to everything that we do. And then in addition to that, to also see sort of the advocacy work that Women's Initiative works on. So we have been present in meetings with administrators on these issues that I just mentioned, particularly in relationship to sexual assault awareness and prevention on our campus. So that's really important too. And if you could just scroll down, you'll see that every single program is highlighted. Can keep going. And that document is all yours to sort of look over and to get familiar with. And then moving forward, of course, we'll have a number of programming initiatives in the spring, which I won't go over in detail right now, but this sort of gives you an understanding of everything that we worked on this semester. And I'm open to questions if you have them.
Any questions for the director? Seeing none. All right, thank you. Now move on to reports from Student Union Board Director, Sue. Right?
Sue, I'll stand up.
All right, I will pull up.
Cool, so I'm just gonna run you guys through the events that we've had this semester. I have visuals because I like visuals. We can start, we can play that video first. And you. So I'm really proud of our ASAP Ferg show, which was our welcome week show. We sold out tickets in 4 hours for our first round, and by the last day, we actually oversold tickets, so we had over 1,000 people there. In addition to ASAP Ferg, both of the openers were both local artists, which is really important to me, especially as a DMV resident. But I think it's important that AU students are coming here and also learning about the culture of DC. So our next event was Spider-Man Homecoming viewing, which is also really cool because it's the first big movie viewing that Sub has done in about 10 years. So we had about 75 to 100 people there. There was popcorn. There were it was cute, which is important just because it's a great outlet for students to have, and we're trying to have a great balance of comedy, movies, and music. Our next event was a Hurricane Harvey benefit concert and barbecue. There was barbecue, there were games, there were giveaways. We brought Angie Kilhar from The Voice, which is, she's a Latina country artist. And we also had Johnny Grave, who is a local blues artist. And we co-sponsored with AU Texans and were able to raise $350 for victims of Hurricane Harvey. So yeah. Our next event was a co-sponsorship with Zeta Psi, their Thanksgiving benefit concert. I'm really proud of this event because a lot of times clubs come to us and they're like, hey, we want $10,000. And we're like, whoa. But they came to us and they're like, hey, we've never done a concert before. How does that work? And we sort of walked them through the steps of this is where you need to go. This is how you reach out to artists. This is how you book an event. And then they came to us later and asked us for money, and we co-sponsored. And they were able to raise $2,000. So I'm really excited just because that's how we want our co-sponsorships to work moving forward. We're not just giving money, but we're helping organizations learn how to put on events successfully. So next year, if they want to do that, they don't have to come to us, they can just do that by themselves. And moving forward, we have IT on Sunday, and we also have a partnership with the Fillmore, so we're giving out tickets to White Panda at another concert. I don't remember. And then at the beginning of next year, we have Battle of the Bands, which is going to be highlighting local indie and alternative bands from the DC area. In February, we're actually starting a new series called Sub-Sessions. So if any of you have watched MTV Unplugged or NPR, like their, what's it called? Tiny Desk, yes. It's gonna be really similar to that. It's gonna be a concert and the artist is also talking about like why they wrote their music. And we're really excited because when we booked the artists, like they were sort of small and now they're like Grammy nominated. So it's gonna be dope. And then in April, we are moving our annual AmFest, our annual music festival, from the amphitheater to the quad. We already have every single media board organization on board for a co-sponsorship. We've already booked our artists, which is an artist that is already big, and we're hoping that they'll blow up over the next few months. But we're really excited. We're hoping that like over the next few years, AmFest can become like Howard Yard Fest or like or like Georgetown Day, but a community event that AU students are able to look forward to. And this year, we're just looking to have inclusivity in our events, having a lot of local artists, and just having really fun and cool events that students are able to go to as an outlet. So thank you for listening to me.
Any questions for the director? All right. Okay, we'll now move on to reports from Case Director Mascaro.
Thank you. I sent you a presentation. I shared with your email, I believe. Everyone have a good Thanksgiving? Yes. I always ask people what their favorite food is, but I feel like so many people that they're starting to get annoyed. Oh yeah, so happy Thanksgiving. I don't know if you missed it, but I carved it myself. It's real. There's no evidence to the contrary. That's on my Thanksgiving table, but it looked nice on Google Images a couple minutes ago. So yeah, I hope you all had a really wonderful Thanksgiving. It's my favorite holiday. And I am hoping that you're back, rested, ready to go. Okay. So most of what I'm going to talk about today is Case Connect related, but I did want to just make a couple of updates since we spoke a couple of weeks ago. So the final number of cases we have as of this morning is 86 students or student organizations helped. I anticipate that number to go up. I don't want to say that I would love it to be over 100 because that means over 100 students need help, but it would be nice if we broke that 100 number in the fall semester because we didn't do that last year. I also wanted to share an exciting update. COGOD, CAS, SIS, and SOC are now having their students directed to Case in the notification letter that a student gets when they're accused of committing an academic integrity code violation, which shouldn't be that big of a deal, but is kind of a big deal because the administration has not been very forthcoming in the past about including references to Case in their official material. And so now that's finally changing, which is exciting. So students will know about us just by virtue of the notification letter. I also wanted to update you about just a few follow-up conversations. I know some senators had questions about it last time. So I wanted to let you know that some follow-up conversations have been had with the Housing and Residence Life Office about the location of where the student rights cards will eventually be posted. So I wanted to share that those conversations have been positive. We're moving in the right direction. And that they, on their end, are just trying to decide if they want them on the inside of the doors, if they want them on the inside of the bathroom stalls. If you want to know my opinion, we can talk more about it later, but I share that because I think it shows some good forward mobility on that issue. We also have been talking to the new Senate Oversight Committee on submitting ourselves to an audit. This is something that I know that the Secretary has been talking about on the e-board level. I thought it might be appropriate for Case to be involved also. Obviously, Senator Koshman, who's on Case, will be recusing himself as the leader of the committee during that overview process. But I imagine that will happen in January, just so that the Senate has more information about our size, what we're doing, how effectively we're spending our time. And then lastly, we're going to be sending out a Case newsletter to the student body at the end of the semester, or probably after finals have ended. We have to work out the timing with the Secretary's office, just to share a lot of the info that we always give to the Senate with the student body so they can know what we've been up to. So on to the exciting news. I wanted to share with you all some of the details about Case Connect, which I'm sure most of you already know about, but it's one of my goals to make sure that the Senate has all the nitty-gritty details and information so that you can hold me and the rest of my team accountable. So I thought it would be a good idea, given that we launched on Thursday, to come in and talk about some of the specificities with the program.
So some background. We have been looking at doing something like this for a long time. Over the summer, we outlined some version of Case Connect as one of our major initiatives for the 2017-2018 academic year. And then based on conversations we had with different constituent groups, we decided to move it up to a major priority that we would accomplish within the 2017 fall semester. And so on the board, I put on some of those groups, those constituencies that we've been looking at and selecting feedback from. And so when we talked to administrators, they struggled with understanding how students would want to receive material and how it would be most accessible to them. On the student level, we hear this literally every single day. Whenever we do anything to elicit feedback from the student body, we always get time and time again from students that they don't understand how to find university policies and procedures, information that's relevant to their daily lives. And even if they can find it, they don't understand how to navigate it. And so those things were in mind when we were building out whatever project that we were going to move forward with. And then finally, from a student government perspective, we also reviewed what we do on our own initiatives. And things have changed in student government for the better. We're a lot different organization than we were 4 years ago, but some things that we did 4 years ago in terms of updating the student body on information, having directors that were responsible for stuff like this doesn't exist anymore, and it probably shouldn't exist because it wasn't that effective, but we took that into account also when building out Case Connect. So that led us to
Time has elapsed, Director. Senator Zitzman.
I move to grant the director as much time as he may consume.
There's a motion to. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
That was the most apathetic eye I've ever written. I promise I'll go faster. So yeah, that landed us on what we launched on Thursday, which is Case Connect in its existing form, which is one centralized online resource center that provides students with access to all the information they need about student rights and student life at American University. So if you see there, and I think that most of you have probably clicked through, we organize it by issue area, which is a decision we made based on the feedback we got from different students. Rather than having to look up a specific policy or look up something that would say like forms or like reporting processes or university policies, things that you and I might understand, but the average student really shouldn't be expected to know. We just kept it really simple and said, well, if you need info on academics, you're going to click on the tab that says academics. If you need info on finances, you're going to click on the tab that says finances, et cetera. And so far, the feedback that we've gotten about that organization system has been positive. So moving forward, we are going to add some different services. We're potentially going to add an additional tab on there. But there's two big things that I'd like to say about this. The first is that on the website itself, in the About section, we've created a separate tab for students and for any community members actually to give us feedback. And we did that on purpose. Students know way more than any of us about what they specifically need out of a service like this. And so we thought it'd be appropriate to make sure that there was a way that we could sort of crowd source the process of getting new information so students have the ability to contact us there. The second thing is public safety has contacted us saying that they would really like some of the resources that their department and the safety and security office at AU provides generally speaking, and I think that's a great idea. Things like being able to request a safe ride or to request a police report are things that should be on there if a student chooses and feels comfortable doing so. The health center has also contacted us similarly, so we're probably going to have a health and safety tab on there, but that's something that Chris and I will talk about in terms of how to best present that information. Another thing that Chris and I will be talking to you about probably in the spring semester is updates on interactivity. If you notice, every single tab on Case Connect provides you with a button where if you're confused as you're reviewing that information, you can get into contact with an advocate from Case immediately. So you fill out a form and you can schedule a meeting with an advocate. Something that Chris did over the summer that we haven't rolled out yet just because of some website things that we have to work through is a live chat function where students could work with an advocate in real time and have a back-to-back conversation. Like if your order on Grubhub didn't go the way you wanted it to, you could speak to someone like directly. Now, hopefully a little more effective than their customer service situation, but something along those lines. And so that'd be beneficial for this site also. So if a student is confused about how to file an appeal for financial aid and they need to talk to someone now, they can talk to one of us. Also, sorry if you don't mind going back. We're also going to be partnering with admin to expand reach. Some colleges, specifically SFC, have demonstrated an interest in working with us to get the word out farther. And then finally, I'll be working with Senator Hawk and the Finance Committee and also Secretary Schneider on a long-term funding plan for this project. It's very inexpensive. It's $16 a month. I'm incurring the cost individually. It's not an issue right now. But long-term, I think it's appropriate that it would be a permanently funded service, probably through DOPAR, but that'll be up to the discretion of the Finance Committee.
All right, any questions for the director? Senator Zitzman.
Do you, have you looked at like any information from your web hosting service or social media or whatever source about how much traffic Case Connect has got since you launched it?
Yes, so Chris and I are both SOC majors. We really like doing that kind of stuff, and I'm pleased to report that our collective brain trust has resulted in some good results. On the Facebook end of things, the reach so far on the post itself exceeds 5,000 people. It's our biggest, most widely viewed post ever since we started our Facebook page for Case. It just outpaced the Puerto Rico post, which was our previous widest audience. On the website itself, this morning we just hit 1,000 unique views, which is also really exciting because that means not just the post itself, but people are actually clicking on it from their own unique computers, phones, whatever, and they're reviewing it there. And I actually would be happy to provide that information to anyone specifically if they're interested, because there's a lot of cool like analytic takeaways that like, do people view it on their computer, on their phone, on their tablet, which pages receive the most clicks? And I don't know that off the top of my head, but that's an interesting data also. But yeah, positive so far.
Other questions? Senator Dantzler.
Congratulations on that launch and the news. In regards to, I noticed that the School of Communications SAS, all the schools signed on for the AIC nomination. School Public Affairs.
Yes.
Is that something that they're thinking about doing as well?
So to be honest with you, I think that the only reason why they haven't is just because they don't know to do it yet. Actually, one of my deputies and I, Gabby, were talking about this. We got an email from the dean and SPA, and they were still calling us the Student Advocacy Center, our old name, you know? So like, there's just a little bit of a disconnect there. So what we decided to do this week is we sent out a memo to every single dean, thanking those that did choose to put us on, and then recommending to the others why they should. So I am hopeful that SPA, and then I think that's the last one. Yeah, SPA will join also. The other ones did it without us even asking. So I have a feeling SPA will.
Other questions? Senator Fryer.
So just real quick, so what are the chances of Case being able to work with like professors to like put like how to get in contact with Case, like whether it's for like a student contact violation or just their Case Connect like on the syllabi for the course material?
That is a fantastic idea, and it's something that we thought about doing last year, but we hit a little bit of resistance, and because we were dealing with so many other things, we decided to like shift our priorities. What I would say is that I would love to work with the Senate on that, because the only individuals in the administration who have reached out to me about doing something like that are members of the Faculty Senate. And so I think it'd be phenomenal if a Case times Senate like collab resulted in doing something like that, positioning ourselves to the Faculty Senate to explain why that's a good idea.
Senator Kenna.
I have two questions.
Yes.
For you. The first one is Case Connect. Does the CNCT stand for something, or is that just
That's a good question. It's an abbreviation for Connect.
Okay.
Yeah. trying to hit the young kids with a snappy.
My second question is typical. Why is this a separate entity and not part of the existing AOSG website?
We're going to roll it into the AOSG website. If you notice on the website itself, we provide some information about that. It was easier for us to roll it out in a timeline that was mutually beneficial to do it through Squarespace. But we're going to integrate it fully through AOSG's website to make it easier to find for every student.
President Thompson.
And to piggyback on that, that's also going to be the same model that they've used for the Case Connect. It's going to be the same model that we're using for AskCloud.
Yeah, I didn't even get to mention that, but another cool thing about Case Connect, now that the president brought it up, is that it's very complementary to the AskCloud initiative of the president's cabinet. And so it really works hand in hand. And some of the information that we include in the website, like requesting access to home, transitions really well into AskCloud. And so, I mean, like our mutual goal of like giving students all the info they need to thrive and to be successful, I'm just very excited for the spring because it's really going to be like an amazing kind of like mesh of the president's initiative.
Other questions? Senator Pintar.
Is this something that we will log on to, like with our AU portals, or just open for?
It's open to everyone.
Okay.
And the filing system that allows students to contact an advocate is also open, but it requires you to provide information that would be identifiable as a student.
Secretary Schneider?
Just tacking on to the thing about the website being separate. Another part of that is it'll consolidate cost because our regular website hosting provider is Nation Builder, and we're able to have multiple websites included in our plan. So once we figure it's complicated to create a new website on Nation Builder, especially customizing it to what we need. So that's part of the timeline issue that we ran into. But that will also solve the funding problem. Question?
Other questions? Seeing none, all right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, I'll just give a quick report. Before I forget, everyone met Clerk Ramchar at our last meeting. I also wanted to introduce other members of the Office of the Speaker. Sarah Shelson, she's our Communications Director of Senate Transparency. She'll be dealing a lot with the social media and trying to improve and just get like the Senate's image out into the student body, like trying to just improve our image as a whole. Lucas Anderton, he's our Senate Communications Director of Information Management. So he'll be dealing with the website and working with Chris and Brian specifically to make sure that the Senate's website page is as up to date as possible, especially with the track legislation part. And then Bilal Exoy, right? Yes. Over here is our deputy clerk, and he'll also be helping with the journal and meeting minutes and anything else that we might need. There's one more. His name is Jonathan Dickerman. He'll be our historian. So besides that, CRP met earlier for the confirmation of Skylar Coleman. It is a favorable recommendation to the full Senate. So right after my report, she will present herself again. And then also we elected, or the committee as a whole elected Senator Zitzman to be the vice chair. So he will now serve as a speaker pro temp. Besides that, going off of what Secretary Schneider said with the headshots and the bios, that legislative order will be mandated later today. So be sure to get whatever photo you want on the website and whatever bio you want sent to between either Chris or Lucas or just anyone, and then we'll get it up on the website hopefully by the start of next semester. And then additionally, I have started going through and reviewing applications and interviews to fill the Senate seats. And so those will be, some of them will be presented next week for our final meeting. Any questions? Yeah.
How many people applied for those ones?
For the seats?
Yeah.
I have currently 3 people for the 2019 seat for 2 seats, 2 College of Arts and Science applicants for 1 seat, and that's it so far. So if you know any senior friends, we need 2018 filled. We also have COGOD to be filled, so tell people that. Yes?
Have these positions been advertised in any way?
So they have through the undergraduate Senate page. And then also like they've been open on the website for a couple weeks now. We're still working on trying to get them as publicized as possible. So definitely share the undergraduate Senate post with open applications. Yes.
What are the chances of having that like a mass email sent, just like letting the student body know of the positions that are available? Because I think that'd be a much more efficient way of the available seats.
I'm going to direct that to Secretary Schneider.
Sorry, can you repeat that question?
What's the chance of having like a mass email sent to the student body, like letting them know of the positions? That way, like, more people can like apply and have a wider range of like even diversity within.
So I was working with Trevor this week. It was actually supposed to go out this week. Now this past week. It's now going to go out this week, just because of the number of scheduling things I had with emails. But in the works, already have it ready to go. I just have to hit send, probably Tuesday, if I had to guess.
All right. Seeing no more questions, we will now move on to nominee confirmation. As I said before, Skylar Coleman was favorably recommended by CRP. And now the same confirmation process will go just like we did last time with the JSEP confirmations. Same with chair confirmations, 4-minute presentation, 4-minute questions, and then debate. So Skylar, floor is yours.
All right. Hello, guys. All right. So I'm Skylar Coleman. I'm going to keep this brief. I talked to CRP earlier. I'm just going to repeat what I said there. So currently there's no class of 2019 president. I would like to be it. A lot of people already kind of think I am it. It wouldn't be much of a transition for the student body, in my opinion. So currently I've been talking to Kishori Turner. She's the class of 2020 president. And she feels kind of disempowered as a class council representative. So we were talking about collaborating, making it more of a position that works for the student body, works for the different classes. I would love to talk to the other class council representatives. I'm not sure there are presidents for those. Oh, okay. But we just want to be able to make more funding for programs. We want to make programs that are outside of like politics. There seems to be a lot of that on this campus, so we'd like to move away from that. We were kind of thinking something similar to what like the subsessions were. We want to see more student-led performances. We want to see students interact with their majors outside of like politics or outside of realms that you would typically think of with their major. So just any way we can do that is kind of what we're interested in. And that's it. Any questions?
Any questions? Senator Fryer.
So I'm Eric. I'm the vice president for the class of 2020. So like I've been working like really closely with Kishori to kind of like, because before, even still, like a lot of people don't really know like what class council does, and like even the positions like may not even be taken as seriously like within student government. So I just wanted to know like what are some of your ideas to like make like the presence of class councils more like apparent, and like ideas to just like do more things within the position.
Great. So Kish and I have really been talking about like first doing more funding initiatives like outside of Chipotle fundraisers and stuff. Just more creative fundraising. I know that they do kind of sales sometimes, but we think we had some like weird ideas. Like we could do curated thrift shops where students donate clothes, we sell them, and then we make money off of that. Just like things like that to raise money so then we can hold events. Like Kish and I both work in the bridge, so we're thinking we should have like student performances in the bridge rather than like outside performances that are like sponsored by the class of 2019, 2020, and any of the class councils. We want to bring the classes together, stuff like that.
Other questions for the nominee? Seeing none, we'll move to a period of debate. If you wouldn't mind stepping out. All right, any points of discussion on the nominee? Vice President Self.
Yeah, so I nominated Skylar. She emailed me. She's one of people who really like hasn't had an active like kind of desire to be in the class council of 2019. I think that, like she said, like class councils are like they've not historically have not done anything, if a little anything at all. But like with Kishori and with class 21 President Zario, with hopefully with Skylar, they have a lot of different ideas, and like they're under my cabinet. And so like I made such a point in my campaign to like kind of revitalize the councils, and like we're kind of like blank slate right now. So like I think that with Skylar, she's a lot of outside the box ideas. Student government, I think very often is kind of like mired its own kind of what it does. But I think the class council especially, with Skylar especially, we can kind of think outside the box and kind of make student government more effective and inclusive. Because I think there are a lot of ways to reach people. I think councils is one good way to do it that we haven't been utilizing at all. So I think she'd be a great candidate. I hope that Senate confirms her, and hope that we can work together in the future to kind of update the bylaws and like with funding, all those kind of things to help class councils really thrive. And I look forward to doing that with Senate.
Any other points of discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to vote on the nominee. Senator Pitar.
I move to vote by unanimous consent.
There's a motion to vote by unanimous consent. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any objection to confirming the nominee, Skylar Coleman, to be president of class of 2019? Seeing no objection, she is confirmed.
Okay.
Yep. Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name, do solemnly swear
I, Skylar Coleman, do solemnly swear
that I will diligently and faithfully
that I will diligently and faithfully
execute the duties and responsibilities
execute the duties and responsibilities
of the office of President for the class of 2019,
of the office of President for the class of 2019,
that I will abide by the governing documents
that I will abide by the governing documents
of the student government,
of the student government,
that I will work to my fullest abilities
and that I will work to my fullest abilities
to promote the interest and welfare
to promote the interests and welfare
of the students of American University.
of the students of American University.
Congratulations. All right. We'll now move on to reports from committees. Both the chair and vice chair of the Standing Committee on Campus and Student Life are not here. So we will move on. I will state that Nancy Legitimacy was elected to be vice chair of the Standing Committee on Campus and Student Life. And we'll hear any additional reports if necessary next week. Moving on to Standing Committee on Student Rights and Services. Senator Chen.
Yes. So we elected a vice chair, we elected Senator Zitzman as our vice chair of the Standing Committee on Student Rights and Services. And then we talked about some goals that we want to set for next semester. So we were talking about first generation resources and resources for low income students, publicizing them, expanding them. And then Senator Zitzman brought up the idea of contacting Faculty Senate and requesting that something like on syllabi, that an area about first generation and low income resources be posted on every professor's syllabi. Just like how the academic integrity code, something about that is always included as well. And then we were talking about expanding counseling center hours or changing them, changing the drop-in hours so it's more convenient for students who have class during that time. And then we also talked about Case Connect and the importance of like making the financial aid appeal process more transparent to students and easier for students, because that's something that we're all very passionate about. And then finally, we talked about following up on Senator Zitzman's legislation from the last legislative session having to do with accessibility on campus, and just making sure that that is happening. So yeah.
Perfect. Any questions for the chair? Okay, now we'll move on to the Standing Committee on Accessibility, Transparency, and Accountability.
So we elected our vice chair, Senator Najafi. She just stepped out of the room. We spoke a little bit about what tangible things we want to do, because as a committee, we're less of a legislative committee and more of an oversight. But a couple tangible things that we're wanting to do is, first, we are going to establish a online suggestion box for the Undergraduate Senate, so people, students can just go on and use a simple form and submit their ideas. We want to start, as Director Mascaro mentioned, not necessarily audits, but bringing in different members of the of SG and the different branches to come and present specifically about how they are committed to working in a transparent environment, just different things that they're doing to ensure that students are able to access their organizations. We spoke about kind of the divide between the Senate and the student body that's been kind of perceived, and what we want to do to help bridge that gap. And it was productive, and I think we set out a good framework for the rest of the year.
Any questions for the chair? All right, so now we'll move on to the Special Committee on Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion.
Hi, everyone. So My committee met on Thursday to elect a vice chair and begin assembling like a timeline for our short and long-term projects throughout this term. We elected our vice chair, who's Senator Hakami, so that was great. We also discussed her bill along with Senator Hawk, who are promoting halal food for TDR, which is very important. We also discussed reaching out to first generation students and programs for them to make sure that they are encouraged to participate in activities on campus such as student government, because I feel, or what's been expressed to me, is that sometimes it's harder for first generation students to know how to get involved on campus or like know where the resources are. So making sure that we're having an active role in encouraging them to make sure that they're participating on campus. We also talked about Plan B AU, which is something that I personally have been very passionate about, in making sure that we can start working towards more affordable and accessible Plan B on campus. We also, for more of just like for internal work, we discussed a system of reaching out to and showing support for groups on campus, with whether it's showing up to their events, whether it's reaching out to their executive boards, because something that I would really like to see this committee do is to make sure that we are seen as a resource for those groups on campus. So when they want something done or they need something from student government, they know to come to us, or they know that we can do something for them and we are supporting them. Yeah, and we also discussed kind of just we had a lot of long-term projects that were coming up, and it was kind of discussion of whether to bring them up now or wait till January. And it was in conclusion with the committee that we kind of do our research over the break and make sure that we have the best quality content we can have when we're bringing this to the Senate floor. So I said, let's all do our research over break, and then we can really move forward in the spring semester. And that's all I have to report. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the chair? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to reports from the Special Committee on Finance.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. So we met last week. We didn't do much because it was the first meeting. We elected Senator Burgess to serve as the vice chair. And then we also got all of the non-disclosure agreements have been signed, and all of them have been turned in. So if you're concerned about that, it's been taken care of. And then I'll just briefly go over things that we're currently working on and going to be working on. So as the comptroller mentioned, we're probably going to sit down sometime this week to discuss an end of semester finance report. And then next semester, hopefully the reports will be like on a monthly basis. But obviously, since we're approaching the end of the semester, we'll do it like that for now. We're also going to be working with CASE and potentially co-authoring their financial aid report that is going to be released. It's going to be worked on over winter break and then hopefully released early next semester. And then the third thing is I'm going to be collaborating with Senator Pintar as well as Fossil Free AU to work on, legislations or maybe a report or something on fossil fuel divestment so that we can revive that movement, because it has died down over the past several years. And then other than that, obviously, if you have ideas for legislation, reports, or anything in general, obviously feel free to reach out to me. And besides that, that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Any questions for the chair? All right, seeing none, we will move on to advising from student activities, and there's no advising this week. So we'll move on to business, to the consideration of Bill 17-18-001, a bill to reform the finance process. As a clarifying statement, remember we have to do first and second reading for bills. Technically, this is the first reading because it's the first time that the Senate is seeing this. So by default, that means the sponsor, let me pull it up. The sponsor will present, there will be questions, and then from there, the bill is referred to a committee. The committee discusses it, amends it as necessary, and then recommends it or does not recommend it back to the full Senate for second reading. Senators do have the option to waive first reading for bills if you want to consider it and move past the committee's portion and consider it today. Given that, will the sponsor like to speak on the bill?
Yes, please. So this deals with the bylaws. It's a bylaws amendment regarding the process by which student government and the university authorize people in student government to spend money And the intent of it, Senator Polinsky and I each wrote a version of this bill, and then we collaborated to combine them into this. Is the intention is to avoid the situation we had earlier this year, where a case entered into a financial agreement, and there was different conclusions about how many steps of the financial process, like in order to fully authorize it, were put into place. And when I think of that process, all those steps to fully authorize it, it reminds me of when you're about to take part in a race. The officials of that race will say, ready, set, go. And once you hear go, you know that you can start going. But the way that the bylaws are currently set up, if directors want to be really careful and cover all their bases, they don't just hear go and then start going. They have to wait for 2 goes from the comptroller and from the university. And I think that kind of goes against what is a proper understanding of a hierarchy, is that the higher up you go, there are fewer people. But in this case, you start with 1 director and they have to go up to 2 people. So what this amendment does is it certifies that once the comptroller signs something, that's your go, that's the singular go, and it pushes the rest of the pre-go authorization from a kind of unassigned implied understanding that it's with the director to back-end work for the comptroller. So once the comptroller does all that stuff, then they sign the document, and everyone knows what stage you're at.
All right, any questions for the sponsor? All right, seeing none. Secretary Schneider?
So I guess it's a question for you.
Yes.
What's happening next? Is there discussion today, or does it get sent to committee?
At this current stage, this bill will be referred to the CRP for next week to be considered.
Okay. Okay, so I have a question for the sponsor, I guess.
Yes.
I don't know how to do a question. So are you aware, it's a good way to start with these questions, that it's just not how the process works? Like, if we're using the case example, the document that Christine signed, or the comptroller signs, is the financial request form, and them signing that, like, that has to be signed first. That it can't be signed at the end. It's the document requesting money, and it can't be the final go. And additionally, this would not resolve the issue that was presented to us with the case situation, because the purchase, in theory, it was in compliance with the bylaws, but the issue at hand, the question at hand, was the final approval from the university. So this would not resolve that issue. Question mark.
Yeah. So I'll go from the end to the beginning. The case request that caused the events that followed was in compliance with the bylaws, except the part where the bylaws mandate that the request also be compliant with university, specifically student activities policies. As far as I understand, student activities policies require the student activities office to assent to the agreement. And because they require that, the bylaws also require that. And my understanding is that the lack of that student activities authorization was the problem in the case example. And then about the request form, I did not know that request form that happens at the beginning was the document that this section refers to, any agreement which carries the weight of student government. So I think that that being the current iteration of how this section of the bylaws is carried out, it does not prohibit the general principle contained in here of having the comptroller's signature being the final go for a financial request from happening. It wouldn't be on that particular document, I think.
Okay, we can work on committee.
President
with Christine.
In addition, this is a really good idea, I guess, in the sense of trying to, I guess, afford clarity under the comptroller's position, but something, I guess, to kind of piggyback on what Chris said. So any organization that is a part of like any club council, AUCC, they all still have the same like procedures in terms of what you have to do via student activities. And this essentially would make Christine's job student activities job, and student activities supervises us. So Christine's go is actually Christine saying set. So it's ready. Okay, like we present the proposal. I look over it. You okay that to move on further in the process. But at the end of the day, it still has to go to student activities because student activities dictates what happens with the allocated funds. So any organization that's even like represented in the Budget Advisory Council has to follow all university policies. So because we are advised by student activities, that burden should fall on the university to ensure that whatever we are doing and within our respective organizations across all 210 plus organizations on campus comply with their policies before they authorize payment. Because the issue isn't whether or not Christine has the ability to authorize payment for student government, because she does. The issue is whether or not that's the final one. So it's an intermediate step that this bill would almost make it as if it would raise Christine's obligations to that of student activities that has an entire like group of people that's their sole job. Shale that works in student activities like wouldn't have a job if like this bill were the case.
Okay. I can see how that how you got that from the wording. At least the intention of this amendment is not to have the comptroller do all that legwork examining the proposal vis-a-vis student activities policy. It's only the comptroller certifying that did happen so that the director knows. That could be clarified when this bill goes through committee, but just like how I envision the process is that the director puts in a request for money, and then student activities, like those people who you mentioned who work for the university, do what they already do and what they would do anyway. But the only difference is that there's one final point when the comptroller like lets the director know that student activities did their job. So it's not really, at least the intention is not that the comptroller does anything new in terms of examining the document or approving it. It's just that final communication step from the Office of Student Activities through communication through the comptroller ending up to the director.
Any other questions? Yes.
It's kind of a statement question, but based on that, what you said, I mean, I was treasurer of SAS Council for a year previously. So like I've gone through the process like pressing forms, that kind of thing. Usually, at least when I was in council, if they send you an email telling your purchase has been approved, so like they already kind of do that. So I'm not quite sure. Like I'm just clarifying because this would affect class councils, school councils, sub, KVU, all of them. That we were really sure like what we're doing and what we hope to see, like where the actual changes, because this is how you communicate to all student government, and I just want to make sure we're all on the same page.
Yeah, so if the Office of Student Activities sends you an email once they have approved your request, that's nice. And if this amendment goes through how it is, that email would serve as an additional signal in addition to the comptroller's signature. But apparently, given the events earlier this year, that is not enough, especially when the senators had to consider who has the final responsibility of approving a request from inside student government. When we had the reinstating of the case director, some of the senators were of the opinion that it was the comptroller's decision, and once she signs on to the initial request, that's go. At that meeting, the secretary argued that the director has to wait for that and the student activities approval. So what this does is just settle that question for SG policy so that everybody in SG is on the same page of when that go actually happens.
Senator Kami.
This is actually also a statement question, blend. Interestingly enough, Senator Chen and I were thinking about a similar idea of expanding on certain bylaw descriptions. So I commend you and Senator Polinsky for this proposal. Following with that, it seems to me at least that this is literally just expanding on the description of the comptroller, because in the bylaws, most officer positions are like a sentence long, if anything. And so I don't necessarily see the harm of maybe clarifying a little bit more intently on an executive position, so we don't have what happened around 2 months ago occur again, based off of, I guess, a statement I even made during the hearing, people potentially not knowing exactly what their own positions entail. So if I'm wrong, if you can clarify, if it's a little bit more complicated than this, like what I'm explaining. But yeah, statement question, sort of blend.
Yeah, so it is like, depending on how you look at it, a little bit of a description of what might already be inherent in the job, or it could be slightly modifying policy. And that just depends on how you understand the kind of implied or just like status quo de facto procedure that has been described by the secretary and the vice president, where it's just a question of how the events are arranged, student activities approval, comptroller approval, and so on. And this doesn't change any of that stuff, and it doesn't like move around the order of those things or say that fewer of those things are required or more of those things are required. This is just communication. It's like all the communication from the university offices are funneled through the comptroller, and the comptroller lets those communications to the director so that they can be sure that their policy is a go.
All right, I'll just remind the body that this is just first reading. So once moving past first reading, this upcoming week can be used to consider amendments and discussions for CRP to make next week. And then the bill will be debated before the full Senate if it's passed through CRP next week. Secretary Schneider.
So I think once again, this amendment or whatever, bylaws change does not change anything. We could end up in the same situation that we were in 1 or 2 months ago with this, because it does not effectively change anything in the bylaws. What I think this conversation should evolve into in committee, because I think that the financial process for internal AUSG can definitely be clarified, because it's actually not outlined at all. I think what we should do, what the Finance Committee in coordination with Christine this week should do is create an internal financial request process so that directors are not requesting money through the university's financial request form, which is the thing in question here. It was always the thing in question, because what Christine signed was a financial request form to student activities. So we were all on board with the student rights cards. That's why it was signed. That then went to the university for final approval. So I think what we should do is create an internal financial request process. So like a director would say, I want to spend X amount on X, and that goes to Christine. So then Christine says, okay, we're going to move forward with this, and then she'll handle everything on the university side. And then there's this process would also outline a communication apparatus for going back and forth, because right now none of that is outlined. There's no policy, there's no regulation, it's not in the bylaws. So I think that's where this conversation should go. Also, just to tack on at the end, Christine did not walk out in protest of this bill. She is third chair in the orchestra. Her call time was 2 o'clock.
I'll entertain a question. So first of all, starting at the end again, I went to the concert last night, and it's very good. If you like Tchaikovsky music, you probably won't be able to make this concert because it's at 3, but I guess maybe you can see it online. And then I would like to do that clarification of the SG finance process, and the way you described what it would look like is also the way I envision this happening, is that it goes in and then out again through the comptroller, and in the middle it goes through the university and all their magic, and it comes back out. So I think it would be a good idea. We can kind of take the shell of this text here and then flesh it out a little bit to clarify the whole process.
Any other questions for the sponsor? Is it a question?
So move.
It's a what?
I move to do something.
What's the motion?
I move to close questioning and open debate.
There's no debate.
Oh, there's no debate? Oh, I moved.
Are there other questions? Okay, seeing no questions, this bill is referred. You have a question?
Yes.
For the sponsor?
Yes.
What is your question?
Would it be possible for you to potentially speak with Shale, who is the person who approves things and student activities, well, with finances? That's kind of like her job to kind of see what the overlap is and what the disconnect is. Because I find a lot of times when our bylaws fall short and when student activities has a different policy, the disconnect isn't in what the existing policies are. It's about the understanding of both. And if we're gonna revise, the bylaws, that I think that you should meet with Shale first to kind of hear what the issue the issue actually is, I guess. Would you be inclined to do that? I guess it's just a question, or I would at least ask you to consider that.
That sounds like a good idea. If I can do it this week, I will. Otherwise, it would have to wait until January. But yes.
Okay. Seeing no further questions, without objection, this bill will be referred to the Committee on Rules and Privileges. Okay. Moving on. The clerk will read the legislation by name and title.
Bill 17-18-002, a bill to establish a mental health survey.
Will the sponsor like to present?
Sure. I guess I can just go up to the front. Okay, hello everyone, it's me again. If you paid attention to my campaign when I was running for Senate, one of the main things I wanted to work on was mental health resources and reforming that. And so I basically wrote a bill as sort of a first step in doing that. I think is establishing a survey. To my knowledge, a survey doesn't currently exist where the student government asks students, what do you think of the resources? Do you need any help finding the resources? Do you know what they are? Do you have any mental health issues that you want to talk about? That type of stuff. And so I I wrote this bill because I think it just does all of those things. And you can, hopefully all of you read it. It's, I put a lot of details in there. Feel free to offer amendments to make it better if you think that'll help. But I think that, just to keep this brief, it's just a really good first step in understanding the mental health problems on campus before we start legislating on solutions. So, yeah, with that, I'm open to questions.
Question for the sponsor, Senator Morrow.
I have a question about the decision to have the survey be administered every month.
Okay.
What was the decision in that?
Yeah, so I was actually hoping to get the Senate's feedback on that. I said monthly because I think it's not too frequent to annoy people and get too much overlapping data, but at the same time it's going to be frequent enough so that we get substantive data every time that we administer it. Obviously, if you object to that, I'd love to hear why.
Senator Burgess.
So to go on that point that the senator made, I was going to actually add an amendment to the bill. I think the bill is great. I think it should be passed in the Senate, but I was going to add an amendment to possibly having the survey at the beginning of the semester and end of the semester to get just kind of a good progress to see how students are feeling towards the beginning and towards the end. And it gives time to review the information and see what can be better done for the next semester than having it on kind of a monthly basis where you kind of really don't see you might get the first couple of months where people will actually do a survey, then later on people might not want to do it anymore. You might not get the qualitative data as you wanted to.
Senator Pintar.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to be the dead horse here. I just like, what is, do you think there would be a significant difference in, data we would be getting, like semester by semester as opposed to by month?
No, and so I'm glad that Senator Burgess mentioned that. My only concern, and this could actually be a separate bill, is that, so one of the things I wanted to include in the survey is basically ask the students, like, do you need like immediate assistance? So that, they can get help if they seriously need it, but they're not, necessarily open to talking about it. So maybe that portion in a separate bill, in a separate survey could be monthly, and then the data, the overarching stuff could be on a semester basis. I'd be open to that.
Senator Kami.
I actually like the idea of having it on a monthly basis. Speaking for my own personal experience with my own mental health, I remember 2 months ago I was at the counseling center talking about like severe depression from all the like stuff that happened during the election cycle. Then I went through a period of being okay, and then after what just recently happened with another case of harassment, I was back at the counseling center talk. So it's not like mental health is something that's just stable and then changes at the. I think just the fact that we have a committee on mental health or just health, having frequent data coming in, checking with students frequently, because mental health does not, wait for anyone, nor does it, I don't know. I think it's just great to have like an accurate representation pretty frequently of what's going on with students.
Other question.
Oh, sorry.
You can say, would you agree?
Would you agree? Would you agree?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree, and I'm glad that we're talking about this. Obviously, the exact specific details will be worked out in the, I guess, the ad hoc committee on health services. And then I guess I'm a member of the mental health initiative, so I can also talk to them, get their feedback, because obviously I think that they have valuable insight on this issue, considering that they're the mental health initiative. So.
Senator Meacham.
In regards to the distribution, is this going to be like an internal AUSG thing that would be emailed from the AUSG accounts, or would you like work with the school to get them to send a school-wide email and then they would collect the data on it?
So ideally, I'm not sure which one of those two options would be most optimal. And I'd love to talk with Secretary Schneider about that, because whichever one is the best in terms of collecting data and like having it responded to the most would be the option that I would choose.
Yeah, I like it. It's a good idea.
President Thompson.
Yes. So I guess my first question is, are you aware that the counseling center, by like their drop-ins, they collect information as to how many people are seeing them on like a frequent basis? And if you are familiar with that, have you talked to the counseling center to see how Senate and student government as a whole can help assist students with the information that they already have? Because I'm trying to think of a way that we don't have to recreate the wheel, because the counseling center has like a screening survey, like for instance, if you want to check to see whether or not like where you are on a depression radar, or on a depression scale, like they have a link where you can get like a first like diagnostic, and they will tell you what subsequent resources there are. So I guess what my question really is saying is, have you considered meeting with the counseling center first to kind of see what that information looks like? Because I know that it was presented, some of it was presented at the Board of Trustees meeting in terms of campus life. And it was talking about how AU students have a lot of stress, and they know where those areas lie. So the university already has access to some of this data. And I guess my second point is, I would recommend a quarterly survey rather than a monthly survey, because quarterly you would see a rise before finals. Then after finals, it might drop down, or maybe it would still increase. I think you would be able to gather more information all at one time, rather than on a monthly basis.
Okay, so great stuff. I have a couple of responses. So the first thing is that I've emailed both ASAC and the counseling center. Hopefully, they haven't responded yet, but hopefully I'll be meeting with them soon to talk about things we can do. Second, I am aware that they do collect data. However, data is skewed when you think about it, and we wouldn't be reinventing the wheel, because that data is only for students that actually go to these places. Yes. So in terms of statistical method and practice, that data is inherently skewed. What I'm trying to do is get data from every single student, whether or not they go. Some students, maybe they're afraid to go, maybe they don't have time to go. One of the things I want to work on is also expanding the hours so that more students can go. So I definitely don't think that this would be repetitive. I think it would just give us more sound data instead of skewed data.
I actually have a question on the creation of the survey itself. I know it says in section 1, subsection A, that you'll be collaborating with the RHA and other relevant organizations to create the survey. And I was wondering if the survey would, if the Senate would be able to see the survey itself, like the actual survey itself, before it gets implemented. Because nowhere in the bill does it say we're going to ever see it. It's just going to become implemented and then.
Yeah, so I left it vague mainly because I don't know what the survey, every specific aspect would be. That's why I want to collaborate to determine that. And once that, somebody could amend this to add that, once the survey is fully written, that it be presented to the Senate for a vote to, if anyone wants to change anything. I would definitely be open to that because I think collaboration is really important on this.
Senators,
I'm not allowed to direct a question to the secretary.
what was that?
Am I allowed to direct a question to the secretary?
Will you take a question?
Yes.
All right. So can you speak to whether, first of all, AOSG has done this before? And if so, what kind of response rate do we get?
Yeah, so I'm actually glad you directed a question at me, so now I don't have to put a question mark at a statement. So I have a couple of things to cover to answer that question. We have conducted surveys in the past. We typically don't do single issue surveys, so this would be a first for that. And kind of in that vein, I think it could be useful to, instead of doing a single issue survey that would occur with such frequency, because I think that'd be detrimental to the goal of getting good data, because I think over time, actually very quickly, probably by the second month, we would have a significant drop off on response rate. We don't have a great response rate for our surveys to begin with, just like the university doesn't. Like the teaching review things that you have to do at the end of every semester, those response rates are abysmal. So the faculty hate them. And so frequency would definitely need to be adjusted, in my opinion. It would have to be adjusted. We cannot do a survey monthly. And aside from that, I think, I'm not opposed to doing a single issue survey, but I think if we kind of made this a larger conversation about coming up with a standard survey that we issue at the beginning and end of every semester, that's something that I think would also be useful. I don't know if the sponsor would want to necessarily do that. And like I said, I'm fine with it either way. And we can definitely implement it. I think, to go back to Senator Meacham's question about whether the university would do it or us, the university would not do it, so we would do it. And we have the capability to do so. And we would send it to all students through our regular email capabilities. And yeah, so I think that's everything I wanted to cover. And I hope that answers your question.
Director Mascaro?
Thank you. I do have a question at the end. I would briefly say, I see what you're saying, Secretary Schneider, about the single or multi-issue survey. The only response I think I would have is that there is probably something to be said for a single issue survey having fewer questions than a multi-issue survey. And so I think that the chances of someone dropping off and losing interest would be lower. There's pros and cons either way. What I would ask Senator Hawk is if you would be willing or interested in the survey creation process, in addition of getting the feedback of the Senate and RHA, to maybe get the feedback of the President's cabinets, the President's cabinet, singular, and the directors in it, some of whom, like the accessibility director, might have some input that'd be valuable.
Yeah, I definitely think that, I would be very open to that, and I would encourage it, because like I've already said, I think that collaboration is really important for this, because there shouldn't be a survey made by just, a few people. Everyone's voice should be heard.
Thank you.
Senator Burgess?
So one question I have is this survey meant to be confidential, or is it supposed to be kind of like a survey for a university official to reach out to a student that might need assistance?
So I think that, again, going back to the part about them talking about if they need immediate assistance, I think there should be an option for them to add their personal information. But besides that, I think that it would be best to have it be anonymous, because I think people will just be more comfortable answering the questions honestly if it's kept anonymous.
Senator Breyer.
Quick question. So like, I know there would be the possibility of students who are like just apathetic and don't want to answer the survey, and in that way, that would probably make the results of the survey skewed. Is there any possibility because you know how we have to fill out mandatory course evaluations for our classes in order to register for our next classes? Is it like feasible to have such a survey like mandatory for the student body to fill out? Maybe not like of course this extensive like review like of the course evaluations, but more like a brief like couple questions and then a room for comments that students should fill out, so that way you can get a better track of like mental health.
So I see your reasoning to do that, but I think that's very controversial to mandate people take a survey like this. However, I think a better solution to the issue of people being apathetic is simply popularizing it more. Something I taught, if you were at the Senate retreat in the morning, I talked about how a big thing that I want to see the Senate do is expand their outreach. Like the Senate Facebook page, when you make a post and like nobody looks at it. So if you could just work on that, overall in the Senate, and then with that survey specifically, I think that would solve the problem without having to force people to take it.
Also, the course evaluations aren't mandatory. There is no mandatory thing. Literally, the university can't mandate anything, like in terms of surveys. So just to put that out there.
Any other questions?
So this is in terms of the content, since like mental health is pretty like important and difficult topic. Like, how do we make sure that we're asking the questions like in the right way? Make sure like the data that we're collecting.
Absolutely, that's a great question. So again, I think that's going to come with the collaboration. Getting as many perspectives as possible to get optimal phrasing. Bringing with things like the mental health initiative, they definitely have again like valuable insight on this. And then, I would be open to presenting that survey to the Senate. And if you have any issues with the way that questions are phrased, obviously you can voice that whenever it's brought up.
Another question?
Yeah, so would you be open to like working with maybe mental health professionals, like people at the counseling center, I just want to make sure that if we're doing this, that it's like done right.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, like I mentioned in response to President Dumpson, I have emailed both ASAC and the Counseling Center, so I am going to hopefully be sitting down with them soon and talking about all of these sorts of things, how we can best phrase stuff, etc.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I just have one quick thought too with the whole email and like the frequency and everything. I was thinking too, if you're looking maybe to just completely eliminate like the bias and also to probably get like the best results, if it would make sense to do this in person and to just select a random sample like over a period of an hour or two. Because I think that the issue with email is you're going to get people that are emailing and filling out the survey that are more likely to be experiencing issues of mental health. And if you want to get the most holistic picture, I think it would be best to take maybe just a random sample of campus. And then also, if you ask, would you like to take a survey? That way there's no preface in front of it. And so hopefully you have the most unbiased and correct holistic picture of the issue on campus.
Yeah, so I think the issue with that is that in person, you don't have as much time necessarily to think through it.
True.
In person, it would be really hard to make it available for people. Because email, you can check your email whenever, go back to that survey and take it. Also, people would be probably less likely to give honest answers in front of someone.
Yeah.
Rather than being anonymous behind a computer screen.
Yeah. What if it was just an idea? If it was like on a computer, or like you send them a link or something? Because I'm just wondering, it sounds like a lot of people don't take the surveys that are sent out by email, and I would want you to have how everyone is feeling, or a good census of it. And I'm just not sure if enough people would take the survey that you would really understand exactly how students are feeling on campus.
Yeah, but I think there needs to be, there's a very delicate balance between having, high turnout, but at the same time making sure that that is quality turnout.
Sure. Yeah.
And so I already addressed why it wouldn't be quality if it's in person necessarily. But again, I think that if we just popularize it enough and get it out there enough, that people are going to take it. Especially, I think that there are a lot more people with mental health concerns on this campus than we may think. And that's because a lot of them don't ever think that they can go somewhere to voice those concerns. So this survey gives them a place to voice those concerns, so I think it would be good.
Yeah, fair enough.
Senator Legitimacy's proxy.
I just wanted to know, excuse me, why RHA specifically was named, and A, if their administration was aware, and B, what you saw that collaboration looking like what it would look like.
Okay, so I named the RHA specifically because I know that the mental health initiative is going to be working on them with programming, so I feel like they probably have valuable insight. They also probably have valuable insight as to things with on-campus residents in general, like how to best administer a survey. I felt like they might have expertise in that issue. That's why I included them.
Other questions? Senator Pintar.
Are you aware of the new group to help improve the counseling center, also known as THIC? Are you aware of the new group kind of forming called to help improve the counseling center, also known as THIC with 2 C's?
I have not heard of that one, but I think that they could also help collaborate with the survey if they want. That's why I kind of left it open-ended.
Yeah, I was just wondering because if you would like that resource as well to help with this, then I would be happily, because it's also formed by a lot of members of Alpha Zeta Delta. So if you need that resource,
yeah, I'll definitely be reaching out to you for that.
Senator Kenna.
I really want to commend your initiative on this survey. But can I ask if you have previously or in the future consulted with any of the research professors that we have here on campus to better form the research design?
So I have not yet done that. Like I said before, again, I'm glad you mentioned it. I'm glad Senator Pintar just mentioned the new group that's forming, because I will be reaching out to all of them. Because again, we want to have an optimal survey so that we can get that quality data.
Any other questions for the sponsor? Senator Adams.
To go off of Senator Beacon's point, so the other day I took a survey that was anonymous, but at the end you could click on a link where you could put your name out separate from your responses, but put your name and then have a raffle, your name in a raffle for a $10 Amazon gift card. Maybe that would help popularize it, because incentivizing things makes it more.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about doing some way to incentivize students to take the survey. The only thing is that logistically, financially, I think that I didn't put those details in here because I'm not sure what they would look like, but I would definitely, again, be open to doing something like that, because again, we want high turnout and we want people to be honest with the answers.
Other questions about the bill for the sponsor? Senator Chen.
In the background, you stated that the survey would also be a way to ensure that students are aware of the mental health resources available to them. So would that be after you finish taking the questions, there's a description of resources that are available, which I think honestly is such an important part of the bill. Yesterday, Senator Fire mentioned to me, you were at the committee meeting, but the fact that there is a counseling center within the Hughes hall, no one knows that. I did not know that. He lives there, he doesn't know that. He just left. But basically, does that make sense? How are you going to express all the resources within?
Yeah, so I was thinking one of two ways. Either one, it would be like you just described, where at the end of the survey, you give sort of a short, list of services and where to find them, when to find them. Number two, I feel like the questions might imply, but if we say that, are you aware that you can go into ASAC's drop-in hours? And of course, they're going to know there are drop-in hours. So it'd be one of two. It could be both of those things, again, depending on what we find to be most optimal. And then the third thing is that we could have separate legislation which establishes somewhere maybe an online comprehensive list of those resources. I'm not sure if that currently exists. I know that you can go on the ASAC website and look at their resources, et cetera, but just a comprehensive all-in-one place thing could happen in the future as well.
Senator Burgess.
Is it possible, if this legislation does pass in committee and comes to a second reading, that we might have potentially some questions that will be offered in the survey for review by not review by the Senate, but just for us to know what potentially might be on the survey?
So do you mean that I would be presenting?
Just presenting the bill for a second reading, just having some of the questions that will be in the survey.
Yes, absolutely. So I think that, again, when we work at the details in the committee and all that stuff, we should, by the second reading, I assume that we would have some questions and, have this done in a lot more detail.
Any further questions? All right, seeing no more questions, without objection, this bill will be referred to the Ad Hoc Committee on Health Services. Perfect. Senator Kemp.
Can, should be referred to ad hoc committee?
No.
Or only standing committee?
Only standing.
You sure?
That was a problem for diversity and inclusion.
Yeah, that's true, but you could do like a joint referral, so you can refer to a legit committee. Oh, okay.
Give me 1 minute.
That's out of that.
Okay, I will submit a final inquiry on that. It doesn't specifically say. So then I will, for now, refer it to for now, I will refer it to the Committee on Student Rights and Services, pending a judicial inquiry, without objection. Okay. Moving on. Seeing that this is only first reading, I will stick to a 5-minute questioning period, just given how long the last questioning period was, because we still have second reading as well. So the clerk will report the next legislation by name and title.
Bill 17-18-003, a bill to institutionalize the Inside Out Prison Exchange Program into AU curriculum.
Will the sponsor like to speak?
Yes, I would like to speak. So basically, if you haven't heard of the Inside Out Prison Exchange Program, what it does is take college students and take them to a local jail or prison and have you take classes with inmates. And so this is an incredible worldwide program that Howard fully adopted. And this semester, my professor, Tiffany Simmons, that also teaches at Howard, brought it to AU, and she taught this class through the Violence, Justice, and the Law class. It's a 400 level class, and from my experience, I went into this class not knowing it was going to be the Inside Out program. No one really knew, and then she told us that we were going to do it, and we went through like this background process and went through training, and then basically we visited the DC Central Detention Facility 3 times, and we took classes with these inmates, and like just to give you kind of like perspective into what it's like. So you go through these 2 Fridays where you get trained for like 8 hours, and then you show up, and like initially we're all super nervous and we're like, what is this going to be like? And then you get in there and like there's these inmates there and they've done their reading and they know exactly what you're going to talk about, and like they're so incredibly engaged, and you don't know what they're in for. Like you don't know why they're there. They could be innocent, they couldn't be. Some of them aren't, but some people at the jail are there because they're in the appellate process. So like one of the inmates just got out Friday because his appeals passed and he was cleared. And so you're pretty much just like talking about critical issues and justice. we're talking about things like, does the state have the responsibility to like protect children's innocence when their parents are being incarcerated? Like, they'll talk about it from their perspective, which is like so insightful. But AU doesn't fully have the program, and like you're supposed to be going 15 times. And the structure is basically we have 2 classes like we normally do, and the students meet in their class, talk about the issues, and then the second class is in the jail. And we only went 3 times, and it was like a much watered down version, and it could have been so much like better, and we could have gotten so much more out of it. And the teacher's not teaching the class next semester, so they're not going to do it anymore, and she really wants to do it again. So she talked to me, and she was like, if you can propose this, it's awesome. We can go to the registrar together, and like other professors have come to me about it, and they want to do it too. And so like the reason why I want this to be a bill is just to say like the Senate fully supports it, and like it carries more weight, and that's like pretty much it. So if you have any questions?
Questions for the sponsor, Senator Zitzman.
I think the program sounds good, especially for people who want to go into law or criminal justice. But about the bill, like the language of it, as far as I can see, what it does is mandate that you and the other sponsor have meetings with people. So my questions, I guess two, or one is like, why do you need the Senate to mandate you to do that? And second, don't you think it might be like more appropriate for the Senate to like follow up on whatever comes out of your meetings, whether those meetings are mandated or not, and then do a resolution or a bill based on that?
Well, the reason why we thought to do a bill was because it does carry more weight, and like the registrar's office is really difficult about getting like classes through, and like the bill is pretty much just like showing the support of the Senate, and I'm not sure how I can exactly answer that. Do you want to?
Yeah, so I think, do I have to be recognized?
Will you yield?
I yield the floor.
So I think to kind of go off of what you were saying, Bobby was saying, what you're saying, I think a resolution is probably the best way to go, because that's what would demonstrate the support of the Senate. That's like what a resolution, I think, the bill doesn't, a bill has to do something, and this bill doesn't really do anything.
Yeah.
Also, like, I don't know why I'm talking about this in the Senate, but yeah, I think a resolution is definitely what would serve you best, especially having dealt with university offices. Like this bill, they would just kind of be, there's no difference in the eyes of the university. So I think like retooling this so that the Senate, it demonstrates that the Senate is in support of your negotiator, or like approaching them about this, would serve you best. That makes sense.
I yield the floor to Taylor.
I yield back.
Is that what we're doing now? So I really, really like this project. It's a really, really great program. I know people that have benefited greatly from the program at Howard. One thing I would recommend that you talk to the faculty senate, because faculty senate is actually in charge of like the reason why we don't have trigger warnings, for example, is because they themselves decide as a joint, literally a joint senate as to what the faculty have to abide by. And the office of the provost is the office that hosts all the class, like they host academic affairs. So I think that if you're interested, you could work with my cabinet as well to set up a meeting with the office of the provost, with faculty senate representatives, and any other people in the room that would like to be present, to be able to flesh this out more. So then when you work to create a resolution in the future, that it's got the most support and the most jam-packed together that it can be, because working with faculty senate and working with the provost office is a joy.
Other questions for the sponsor? Seeing none, this bill will be referred to the Committee on Student Rights and Services without objection. Moving on to the next piece of legislation. Clerk will read the legislation by name and title.
Bill 17-18-004, a bill to serve halal at TDR.
Would the sponsor like to present?
Sit here. Okay, well, I guess we can just stay here. This bill is a little bit pretty straightforward in its purpose. It's to provide halal on actually all on-campus food vendors. We actually set up a timeline for the introduction of halal to different food vendors on campus. So by the end of fall 2018 semester, halal will be brought to the tavern. By the end of fall 2018 semester, halal food trucks will be brought in as an intermediary median to campus. And then by the beginning of fall of 2018 semester, halal will be finally brought to TDR. So I guess what is the purpose of this? We have students who are on a halal diet, whether it's for religious purposes, maybe not even religious purposes, and they simply just cannot be eating a lot of different types of food on campus. And this arguably is horrific. You have students who are paying up to $300 out of pocket each month to go and buy food off campus because their meal plan is discriminatorily neglecting their presence within the dietary restrictions in TDR and other food vendors on campus. And we are basically promoting or presenting an inclusive meal plan. A lot of different kinds of universities across the nation, and specifically in DC, one notable university, Georgetown, with their first elected Muslim AUSG president. This was one of her main initiatives that she actually passed recently. I believe it was last year. And it was just to bring halal to campus. Aramark Corporation currently actually has halal, and a few days ago, Muslim Student Association posted that they finally gained, just the Islamic Society of the Washington area finally was granted a halal certificate. For those who are wondering, actually Elevation Burger served halal, but the way that they presented the meat was not in the median of what halal constitutes. So the knives that they were using or different cooking instruments were mixed with non-halal meats. I mean, that's not sanitary according to halal regulations. And so this certificate would allow us to now have certain types of halal meats, but it's only for chicken specifically. So that's what's going on with that. Sorry, this is a very long, it's a longer bill than most that are presented, so it's gonna take a little bit longer to describe to y'all. What else? So we have different types of, so we're planning to actually work with Aramark Corporation in order to bring halal. This is what Georgetown did. And we're hoping that everyone is on board with this because if you ask me or even Senator Hawk or just Muslim Student Association or anyone who is really in favor of this, it's a dire necessity because we should not be picking and choosing which students get to eat on campus and which don't. So, would you like to add anything?
No, I think that basically covers it. I hope we have everyone's support, and just to, in case somebody's going to question, we're not really mandating stuff so much as we're laying out a plan. So we're not trying to say that, oh, we're forcing people to do stuff in this legislation, because obviously the Senate can't do that. We're just trying to lay out a plan. And I think that there's really no reason to oppose this.
Any questions for the sponsors? Senator Meacham.
Just a comment. I wanted to say that I thought it was good that you guys laid out so much information here, because I feel like if you were to hand this bill to someone, it would give such clear guidelines. So hopefully it makes it easy for you guys to get that through.
Another question.
Yeah, do you agree?
We agree.
Good.
Senator Pintar's proxy.
Thank you. I was just going to say that I think that this is a great bill. I think that there is a lot to be discussed in committee on it, and I was going to recommend or motion that it be referred to the Committee on Campus Life. That's it. That's it. I was going to move instead of asking a ton of questions, unless there are important questions. I was going to keep it moving. It's at your discretion if you'd like to move it to Campus Life, though.
Well, there's a motion to refer the bill to the Committee on Campus and Student Life. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say yay.
Yay.
All those opposed say nay.
Wait, yes.
Sorry, Milan, if you have an important question.
No, I was just gonna ask Senator Hakami, from our last meeting with the Muslim Student Association, was it a welcoming response from the lady that's in charge of dining services? in terms of like the timeline and whatnot.
Yeah, so actually, Bilal can actually even also attest to this because he was at the meeting as well. It's a really funny story, actually. From my own interpretation of the director of dining, it seemed as if she was, well, she is new. She's been in the job for 3 months. She needed a set deadline or actually like a fully planned bill in order to really go ahead and do any further I don't know, research on the topic. Actually, you guys talked to her the day beforehand and kind of informed her on what halal is, what necessarily y'all are asking for, what you want to, what you would hope that she provides as a director of dining, as in the position of director of dining. So really, this completely outlines just a basic introduction of what we would hope that she would elaborate on. Yeah, as administration. So.
The bill has been referred to the Committee on Campus and Student Life. Moving on. The clerk will read the legislation by name and title.
Resolution 17-18-001, a resolution to appreciate the work of the Residents Hall Association.
Would the sponsor like to speak on the resolution?
Yes, I will. So briefly, I wrote this resolution just to kind of like, I feel like the RHA as a whole, as an organization, kind of gets underappreciated in terms of like AUSG and just like the work that they do in the programming that they do throughout the semester and throughout the year. So this bill is just to appreciate the work under the leadership of President Sam Rogers and his collaboration with AUSG and Secretary Schneider to provide the Thanksgiving break meals to students that were here, as well as to just kind of affirm AUSG as kind of like an organization that will continue to co-sponsor and work with RHA as an entity, especially since we have a lot of senators here that are part of RHA as well.
All right, are there any questions for the sponsor? Senator Pintar's proxy.
No question, just comments. I can wait.
Okay. Any questions for the sponsor, Secretary Schneider?
Can you make an amendment to correct that it's in the final, in the resolution clause, it's the wrong it's, I'm sorry.
No.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the sponsor? All right, seeing none, we will move into the debate. Any points of discussion on the resolution? Senator Burgess.
Can I motion for the correction of grammar for the it's?
Where is it?
Under command.
You said the last one's?
Second line, yeah, right, yeah.
That's right.
It's a contraction of it is.
Wait.
It is due.
I'm gonna have it, but
I don't know if we can be secretary anymore.
I retract my motion. Yeah.
Any points of discussion?
I apologize. Wow.
I was just going to say that I think this is a great idea. Senator Burgess is doing the right thing by putting our sentiments to paper and recognizing the importance of the relationship between us and the RHA. And I would motion or recommend that we approve the legislation by unanimous consent.
All right, there's a motion to approve this by unanimous consent. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there objection? Any objection? Seeing none, the resolution is adopted. Perfect. Clapping is in order.
I'm still just shocked. I'm like,
we all are, Chris.
You were wrong. No, I didn't read it correctly.
All right, so moving on to the next item. The clerk will report the legislation by name and title.
Resolution 17-18-002, a resolution to acknowledge the need for upgrades on campus for students with physical disabilities.
All right, it seems that the sponsor is unable to be here today. We'll move right into a period of discussion. Is there any discussion on this resolution?
First.
Senator Zitzman.
I spoke with Senator Polinsky about this bill. a little bit. So I'll just, while he was sitting here before the meeting, so I'll relay what he had to say, but this shouldn't replace what would normally be his time to speak. And this is just basically identifying what physical disabilities access needs to be updated on campus. Of course, that's pretty clear from the wording of the resolution, and he was going to go over the various initiatives that student government has taken on this issue in the past. Like a while back, the bylaws were updated to require SG events to be held in physically accessible places. And then a few months ago, we passed a bill directing the president to advocate about campus building accessibility. And we should be hearing a report on those issues pursuant to that bill next week, I guess. And then the speaker, also pursuant to that same bill, is going to be, or may, at their discretion, appoint up to 3 senators to work with the president on that bill. Senator Polinsky has expressed interest in doing that, as have I. That's my bill. So if any of you want to do that, you can talk to the speaker.
Any other points of debate on this resolution? Seeing none, we'll move to vote. All those in favor of adopting resolution 17-18-002, say yay.
Yay.
All those opposed, say nay. Resolution is adopted. Moving on. Clerk will report the legislation by name and title.
Resolution 17-18-003, a resolution to label product prices and thought.
Would the sponsor like to speak on the resolution?
Sure. I'll actually stay seated for this one because it's pretty short. So I didn't realize that this was an issue until, obviously I started talking to students. They started coming to me with what they want the Senate to do in this term. And one of the things that a lot of people have told me they're concerned about is that the pod markets on campus don't always label all the items prices, and they think that that's an issue. You can read through the legislation to see the sort of rationale. So I think it would be good. Obviously, we don't have primary jurisdiction over that issue, so I think it would be good to at least pass a resolution saying that we're going to try to work with the student trustee to at least advocate for some policy to label all the prices.
Is there questions for the sponsor? Senator Bechdeva.
I actually have a question what you meant by the very end of it, where you were like, there be resolved at the very end, you say and I was wondering if that was a
That is actually, there was another clause, but it was removed, and I guess that's an error in the formatting, so.
Other questions? Senator Zinsman.
If you know Senator Hawk, or if anyone else knows, they should contribute. But does the Board of Trustees have, do they deal with things like prices at campus establishments?
So my understanding, I just defaulted to that, and then I obviously sent it to the speaker, and I didn't have any acknowledgement that I was wrong on that fact. But if I am, obviously, feel free to amend the resolution to whatever is correct.
Senator, Secretary Schneider.
We're going into debate after this, right?
There will be.
I'll wait for debate.
Okay. Other questions for the sponsor? All right, seeing none, we'll move to a period of debate. Secretary Schneider.
Okay. The student trustee / the board of trustees does not deal with this in any semblance of the word deal with. So I think it's a great resolution. First of all, on the trustee issue, basically we should, as a body, or as a, not just Senate, but like in total, we should avoid bringing the student trustee into what we do, because it's not, the student trustee is not part of student government at all, not governed by student government. We don't have control of the student trustee. And it just usually in most cases involving specific campus issues, the the student trustee doesn't have, like the board of trustees doesn't involve itself with like day-to-day campus issues. So like the board of trustees would not know what to do with this if it was presented to them. Also, the board of trustees only meets quarterly. So it's just not like the board of trustees is not an effective channel for pretty much almost everything we're doing as a student government. But like in this case, we don't have a dining committee, do we? No, we don't. Yeah, there's no like dining committee or like dining point person, but I personally have met with the director of dining. I had a one-on-one with her for like 2 hours. So like, I guess in the like looking at this kind of legislation, like reaching out and finding who in student government has like that connection to specific university offices would be like the best way to go about this kind of stuff. That all
discussion. Senator Meacham.
The point of contact, I believe, for pod would be Aramark, because Aramark is the one that manages pod. So I think it'd be best to direct it to either someone from university dining or even just the Aramark representative for AU.
Senator Burgess.
I was going to motion for us to change the wording possibly, where we do include AU dining services as well as the AU representative for Aramark. To either recommend or encourage them to label the prices in the pod.
So what is your amendment?
Did
you motion to amend?
Yes, I did.
Therefore, what's the amendment?
Therefore, be it resolved that the Undergraduate Senate encourage or even recommend, depending on what the Senate feels, the AU dining services. That includes like director and all that, as well as our representative for Aramark, to advocate for a pricing labeling policy for pod markets on campus. You can take out the board of trustees as well.
Yep. AU dining services as well as the USG representative for Aramark. Does what?
As well as to advocate for a price labeling policy for or any markets on campus.
Any market?
Yes, on campus.
Okay. I guess this is all. Okay, so this is the amendment. Or is this the wording that you'd like to see?
Yes, it is.
Yes. Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Okay. Debate on this amendment. Secretary Schneider.
So you should the amendment. I'm just going to talk because I can't do anything. The person that you're going to want to talk to is Anne Marie Powell. She's the director of One Card and Dining Services. So I would work that in there somehow. And I would also change the wording to be that the Undergraduate Senate endorses putting prices on everything in pot. Not recommends that it's advocated for. It's just a lot of university wants very specific things when they're reading these things, and so basically just saying AUSG wants prices on pot items. Very straightforward.
Other debate. Senator Kami.
I just want to motion to maybe resolve all this during committee meeting. Just
resolutions to committee.
It can be referred to a committee.
Or refer all of this to a committee to be settled out.
I mean, so you're motioning to refer this to a committee?
Yes.
All right, there's a motion to refer this to, do you have a specific committee?
On campus life?
Yes, okay.
You
There's a
can't.
motion to refer the resolution to the Committee on Campus and Student Life. Is there a second?
You're in the amendment right now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we're in.
That's not germane to this yellow ink.
You are correct. Save the motion for after the amendment. Is there further debate on this amendment? Senator Burgess.
Can I add to the amendment to change the wording?
Given that it is your amendment, yes.
Okay. So where it says, therefore it be resolved that the Undergraduate Senate encourages, so take out recommends, and then AU one card and dining services. And take out advocate as well.
Take out advocate.
And then also take out two. Oh, one card office. Also add office.
This. You need something after error marker.
Yeah.
So it currently reads, the Undergraduate Senate encourages the AU one card office and the AU dining services, as well as the AUSG representative for Aramark for a price labeling policy at any market.
To implement a price labeling, so take out 4. Or we could keep 4 depending on how it sounds. Okay, we'll get rid of 4.
Okay, so it currently reads, therefore be resolved that the Undergraduate Senate encourages the AU one card office and the AU dining services, as well as the AUSG representative for Aramark, to implement a price labeling policy at any market on campus. Okay.
The comma after as well, wait, and the AU dining services, comma, as well as the.
You think that's clearable?
Yeah, comma.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Senator Legis, use proxy.
Just another clerical, I think before AU dining services, the should be taken out. I think just and AU dining services.
Okay.
Think it's clerical?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Any debate on this amendment? Seeing none, we'll move to vote on the amendment. All those in favor say yay.
Yay.
All those opposed say nay. So this resolution, this amendment is adopted. Okay. All right. Any other points of discussion on the resolution as a whole? Seeing none, we will move to vote on the resolution. All right. All those in favor of adopting the resolution 17-18-003, say yay.
Yay.
All those opposed say nay. All right, this resolution is adopted. Okay. Moving on to the last legislation for the day. get the word document up in a second. But the clerk will read the legislation by name and title.
Resolution 17-18-004, a resolution to support Case Connect.
Would the sponsor like to present?
Sure. Again, it'll be brief, so we'll just stay seated. So as you guys know, Secretary Schneider worked with Director Mascaro and the rest of the CASE staff to develop Case Connect, which is like, it's already mentioned, like this online resource, centralized place to get information on the conduct process, how to file appeals, all that type of stuff. So I think that it would be a good idea to just have a resolution showing our support in order to acknowledge the work that they did, but also to say that we're going to continue to support this initiative so that when Director Mascaro leaves or when Secretary Schneider leaves, that this initiative does not die out. And so that's basically the reason I wanted to get this resolution on the Senate floor.
All right. Any questions for the sponsor? Senator Sitzman.
That's not a question. Never mind.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll move to a period of debate. Any discussion? Senator Sitzman.
I request unanimous consent that we adopt the resolution.
There's a motion to adopt the resolution by unanimous consent. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any objection to adopting the resolution? Seeing none, this resolution is adopted. All right. Seeing no old business, we'll move on to another period of public comment. Any member of the public wishing to speak? All right. Seeing no one, move to the good of the order. Are there any executive good of the orders? Secretary Schneider.
Like I said at the beginning during my report, we're in the home stretch. I hope everyone's taking care of themselves. There's going to be a lot of resources on campus for everyone as we head into finals. It's really intimidating that like the library is going to 24/7 hours and everything. Like there's a lot going on, and especially for the new students that probably have 5 in-class sit-down finals, it's a lot. As someone who has 1 in-class final, it is still a lot. But just know that the full resources of American University are ready for you. Make sure you get sleep. Make sure if you're stressed, you reach out to the counseling center. You reach out to resources that are always available, resources that become available around this time of year. I'm looking right now at Final Perk because that is coming up on December 8th, which is Friday. So that's awesome. For those of you who don't know, it's something that the library does every year in coordination with campus groups. And they have like food, and it's just like a big party in the box. So come to that. Just there's a lot of cool things that happen during finals time too. So don't just focus on academics, even though it's the most important thing. Make sure you take care of yourself. Thank you.
President Thompson.
I'd like to echo Chris's sentiments about self-care and making sure that you all finish the end of the semester very, very strongly. You'll be seeing throughout the week social media posts about self-care initiatives on the SG social media websites. And I look forward to seeing you all next.
Any other executive? All right, moving to Senator go to the orders. Any Senator? Senator Sitzman.
All right. This is kind of something that Senator Polinsky asked me to say before he left because he's sick. He went home to sleep. And also something that I've talked about a couple times during this section of previous meetings. But we still need a parliamentarian. And for a while there was no application, but Senator Polinsky says that he has heard that Joyce DeSuris is now applying again. So I would recommend to the president, just as one senator, to fill that position.
Any other good of the order for Senator? Senator Adams.
To piggyback on that, I know that Secretary Schneider said he was sending out an email soon about available positions. So maybe it's best to like wait until other people have a chance to know about that position and apply and see more options.
Senator Dantzler.
I just wanted to say that I know for those who've been at the retreat, it's been a long day, but it was a good day in my opinion. And that I enjoyed retreat this morning. And kudos to a good job. And I'm looking forward to working with student activities and their leadership to get things passed and get things enacted. And for those who missed it, you missed a good morning, but hopefully that you can get with us and those who were there and get some clarity on how that went.
Okay, I'm gonna make this short and brief because finals, huh? That's not funny. Okay, point being is I would love, love, love to see everyone actually in Senate be an advocate for this bill on halal, be an advocate for any bill that was presented that has some sort of activisty role that Senate can portray itself in. I think like how Joyce mentioned earlier today, publicize what you're doing. Make sure the student body is aware of what's going on in each of our meetings, not even just that, but in our committee and commission meetings, in our conversations, just involve the student body, invite people to actually come to these events or to our Senate meetings. Have bills that actually amend or bring about a new program to AU. Make this Senate, I think personally, at least it's my own goal, and I'd hope that you guys adopt this or include this in something that you guys want to actually strive to achieve as well, but be an activist, like first and foremost, be an advocate for the student body and push for something greater for the long run, in my opinion. But I don't know.
Any other good of the order? All right, and just a quick announcement. So I'm working to create a commission on creating unified code through Senator Zisman's leadership. We were talking about like how past legislation is just forgotten with transitioning into new student government leadership. And so by creating this unified code, it'll sort of allow new members that come into student government understand and know what is expected from them that is outside of the bylaws to sort of continue that institutional memory. So if you're interested in that, please reach out to me and let me know, or let Senator Zisman know, because I'll be creating that in the next week. Also looking to consider making a commission on for health services, which is separate from the ad hoc committee. That would what's the word? Senator Hawk, do you know what's the word?
Well, I think you're referring to my idea for a mental health commission.
It's like I'll come back to I can't remember the word. Assessing health services. That's it. Assessing health services and seeing making recommendations to see what could be improved, what could be changed for the university in relation to other universities' policies, things like that. If you're interested in that, let me know. And then also, as Senator Zisman brought up before, his bill on accessibility allows the speaker to designate the 3 senators to help the president with the accessibility issues. So if you're interested in that, Senator Zisman is falling with one. Senator Polinsky might be the second one. So if you're also interested, let me know. And besides that, don't forget your office hour this week. And everyone enjoy the last week of classes. So if there's no other good in the order, we are goodbye.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know, right? I have an 8-page piece of paper due in 4 days.
Yeah.
He's actually
Don't worry.
number 1 at the time.
I think as long as it is.
Thank you so much.